The knock came at 3:17 a.m. Three slow, wet raps on the door. It was the kind of storm that drowned out the world. The kind where the rain sounded like static, endless and hungry. Claire hadn't been sleeping. She never did when it stormed. The power had flickered out an hour before, leaving her in the kind of darkness that made her question every shadow. Then the knock. She shouldn't have answered, but the voice, small, trembling, said, "Please, I'm cold." Claire opened the door. The girl was soaked, her hair clinging to her face, her dress dripping onto the welcome mat. She didn't look up. "Can I come in?" Claire stepped aside. The girl walked in, leaving puddles behind her. But when Claire turned to close the door, she saw it. The girl's footprints weren't wet. They were dry. And when she turned back, the girl was gone. But the puddles remained. They still appear every time it rains. The drip was wrong. Jesse noticed it first. A slow, steady plink of water hitting the floorboards. But the attic was above his bedroom. There was no plumbing up there, just old boxes, dust, and the lingering smell of mildew. He grabbed a flashlight and climbed the pull-down ladder. The attic was dry, no leaks, no damp spots, but the dripping continued below. He shone the light along the rafters, the beams, the insulation, nothing. Then as he turned to leave, he saw it, a single drop of water hanging from the ceiling. But it wasn't falling down. It was falling up. And the moment he reached for it, something in the darkness reached back. They first noticed him in the fall of 1987, a man in a long, dark coat standing at the edge of Miller's Field. He never moved, never spoke, just stood there, staring at the town as the rain poured down. The strange part, he was only there when it rained. No one knew his name. No one could recall ever seeing him arrive or leave. But whenever the skies opened up, there he was, soaking wet, unmoving, watching. One night, Old Man Higgins decided to confront him. He marched out into the downpour, shouting, "Who the hell are you?" The stranger turned his head, and Higgins swore, right up until the day he disappeared, that the man's face wasn't human, because when the lightning flashed, it was hollow. Would you have opened the door? Let me know in the comments. And if you think this was scary, wait until the next one. The puddle shouldn't have been deep enough for footprints. Ryan noticed it while waiting for the bus, the kind of slow drizzling rain that made everything feel muted. The puddle at his feet was shallow, just a thin sheet of water over cracked pavement. Then he saw the first imprint, a bare foot pressing down into the water. No one was there. Another step, then another. Closer. The footprints circled him, slow, deliberate, like something unseen was pacing. Ryan held his breath. The last print formed inside the puddle, toes pressing down just inches from his shoe. Then the rain stopped. The puddle dried up in seconds. But that night, as Ryan lay in bed, he heard it. A wet, sloshing sound from the hallway, like something dripping and walking toward his door. The storm drains in Hollow Brook were old, rusted grates leading to tunnels no one had mapped in decades. Kids dared each other to touch them during storms, laughing as the water rushed violently below. But in the night of October 8th, 1993, the laughter stopped. A group of teenagers had been drinking under the bridge when the rain started. That's when they heard it, a scraping, dragging sound from inside the drain. Then the screaming. By the time police arrived, only one girl was left, shivering, her clothes soaked. She kept repeating the same phrase, It only comes out when it's dark. The others were never found. But sometimes when the rain is heavy and the streets flood, the drains gurgle in a way that doesn't sound like water. Emma found the umbrella on the bus, black, sleek, still damp from the rain. No one claimed it, so she took it home. That night, the storm returned. She opened the umbrella on her porch and immediately noticed the smell. Like wet earth, like something rotting, and then the weight. It felt heavier than before, as if something were hanging from the fabric. Emma tilted it slightly. A single drop of dark liquid fell onto her hand. Not water, blood. She dropped the umbrella. It rolled into the street, caught by the wind. The next morning, it was leaning against her door again, dry, waiting. Do you think Emma should have opened it again? Would you? They said it was the wettest funeral in county history. The grave was half flooded by the time they lowered the casket, the mud sucking at their shoes. The preacher rushed through the verses. Everyone left as soon as they could. No one noticed the dirt shifting as they walked away. 3 nights later, his wife woke to the sound of something dragging itself up the porch steps. She didn't have to look through the peephole. She could smell it. Wet soil, stagnant water, the sour tang of something that shouldn't be breathing. The knocking started softly, then harder, then something cracked, wood splintering. The next morning, the neighbors found her rocking on the porch swing, soaked to the bone, whispering, "He's still so cold." The grave was empty, but the rain had washed away all the footprints leading back to it. The weatherman had promised sunshine. So when the first drops hit Sarah's window at midnight, she assumed it was just a passing shower, but it didn't stop. By 3 a.m., the rain was pounding hard enough to rattle the glass. She checked her phone. No storm warnings. The radar showed nothing but clear skies for miles. Then the power went out. Sarah lit a candle and peered outside. The street was flooded, water rising fast. But the houses across the road were dry. Not a single drop touched their roofs, as if the rain were falling only on her house. Something moved in the floodwater below, a shadow drifting just beneath the surface. Then the candle went out, and the knocking started, not at the door, at the window. Would you have looked outside, or would you have pretended not to hear? If you think these stories are fiction, wait until you hear the next one, then tell me it's not real. The river swallowed half the town when the dam broke. Rescuers worked for days, pulling bodies from the wreckage. Some lodged in trees, others washed miles downstream. On the 3rd night, they found a woman face down in the mud. Her skin was blue, her lips were parted, and when they turned her over, her chest moved. The EMTs worked frantically, but her vitals made no sense. Her pulse was slow, too slow. Her skin stayed freezing, even under blankets. And the water, it never stopped dripping from her hair. She woke screaming in the ambulance. Not words, just sounds, guttural, choking noises, like something trying to speak through a mouthful of river water. They sedated her, but at the hospital the nurses noticed something strange. No matter how many towels they used, she never dried. The road was empty except for them. Black umbrellas in the rain, clustered around a gravesite. No cars, no tents. Just mourners standing silently as the coffin was lowered. I shouldn't have slowed down, but I did. And that's when I saw her, the only one without an umbrella. A woman in a soaked white dress, staring directly at me. Her eyes were black. Her mouth was moving. I hit the gas. That night I woke to the sound of wet footsteps in my hallway. I told myself it was the pipes. Then my bedroom door creaked open, and I smelled it. Wet earth, funeral flowers. The last thing I saw before I closed my eyes was her dress, dripping onto my floor. She wasn't there when I looked again, but the puddles never dried. The lake took my sister in 2014. They never found her body. Last Tuesday, the rain woke me at 2 a.m., and that's when I heard it, a girl sobbing outside my window. I knew that cry. I'd heard it every night for months after she disappeared. My hands shook as I pulled back the curtain. The yard was flooded, and there, knee-deep in the water, stood a figure in a yellow raincoat, the same one my sister wore the day she drowned. She wasn't facing me, just standing there, crying. I screamed her name. She turned her head, too far, and then the thunder cracked and the power went out. When the lights came back on, the yard was empty, but the next morning I found tiny wet footprints leading up to my window and back to the lake. Would you have opened that curtain? Or would you have pulled the blankets over your head and prayed for morning? Daniel disappeared on a Tuesday. 1 minute he was walking ahead of me in the storm, his hood up against the rain. The next, gone. No splash, no scream, just empty sidewalk. The police searched for months. I moved away. Then last week I was back in town for my mother's funeral. It was raining, of course, and there he was, standing at the bus stop wearing the same jacket, same jeans, same shoes, not a day older. He turned and smiled at me. His teeth were black. His skin was wrinkled like he'd been underwater too long. I ran, but when I looked back, the bus stop was empty, except for a single puddle, still rippling. The sign said Maple Lane, but my GPS showed nothing, just forest. The rain was coming down hard, and I was lost, so I took the turn. Big mistake. The road got narrower, the trees leaning in like they wanted to touch the car. Then the pavement ended, just dirt. I hit the brakes. That's when I saw the house. A crumbling Victorian, every window lit. A woman stood on the porch, waving at me, like she'd been waiting. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister. "Where are you?" "You missed dinner." Sent 3 hours ago. I looked back at the house. The woman was gone, but the front door was open, and the rain, it was falling upward now. Would you have gone inside that house? Or would you have driven until your gas ran out? If you're still listening, you're braver than I am, because I wouldn't make it past the first night. The clock always reads 3:07 a.m. when it starts. First comes the smell, wet wool and rotting leaves. Then the sound of something dragging itself up the stairs. I try to move, try to scream, but my body won't respond. The bedroom door creaks open. Rainwater pours across the floorboards, though my windows are shut tight. It stands in the doorway, silhouetted by lightning. Tall, too tall. Its fingers brush the ceiling as it steps forward. The mattress sinks beside me as it sits on the edge of the bed. I feel its breath, cold and damp like a winter storm, on the back of my neck. This is when I always wake up. Except last Tuesday. Last Tuesday, the power went out. And in the pitch black, I felt its hands close around my ankles. We took the picture at noon on a cloudless day. Our whole family smiling in front of Grandma's house. When we got the prints back, we thought it was a developing error at first. Streaks of gray blurring the background like heavy rain. But the closer we looked, the drops weren't falling down. They were frozen mid-air, and in the upstairs window, barely visible through the rain, something was watching us. Grandma sold the house a week later. The new owners called us last month. They asked why all their pictures had water damage, even the ones taken indoors. Mrs. Abernathy takes her walk at precisely 4:15 p.m. whenever it rains. Same blue raincoat, same black umbrella, same slow pace past my coffee shop window. I've worked here 12 years. She hasn't changed a day. Yesterday, I finally asked old Mr. Peterson about her. He turned pale. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Helen Abernathy drowned in the '78 flood. They found her body right where the bus stop is now." As he spoke, the bell above the door jingled. Mrs. Abernathy stood there, dripping on the welcome mat. Her umbrella was folded neatly in her gloved hands, but when she smiled, I saw the river water running between her teeth. Would you have answered when she smiled? Or would you have pretended not to see the leeches in her hair? The last clear day was June 17th. I know because my mother took a photo of me blowing out birthday candles in our backyard. You can see the blue sky behind me. The weatherman had promised a week of sunshine. The rain started at exactly 3:33 p.m. It never stopped. At first, people tried to live normally. Then the crops failed. Then the roads flooded. Then the changes began. Now we measure time by the rising water. The church steeple vanished last year. City Hall went under last month. My house will be next. Sometimes when the rain is heaviest, I see shapes moving beneath the flood waters. They don't look human anymore, but they still wave at me, just like in Mom's last photograph. The doctors say it's just a phase, but I know better. Every picture is the same. Our house, the oak tree out front, and torrential rain falling from a black sky. There's always a shadow standing by the tree. At first it was small, barely noticeable. Now it takes up half the page. Last night I woke to find Jamie at his window, whispering to the storm. When I pulled him away, his pajamas were soaked, and on the glass, written in condensation, were 3 words: "Let me in." The strange part? Jamie can't spell yet. The first rule of Blackwater County: when the heavy rains come, don't speak outside after dark. The whispers sound like your loved ones at first. Your name, a familiar phrase, maybe your mother's voice calling from just beyond the tree line. Answer them and you'll hear the splashing footsteps coming closer. Turn on a light and you'll see their faces pressed against your windows, stretched too wide, mouths full of rainwater. But the worst part, they don't take you right away. They wait, because they know you'll tell yourself it was just the wind. And next time you'll answer faster. Could you stay silent, or would the sound of your child's voice break you? Still listening? Then you must hear it too. That sound just beyond your window. Is it rain, or is it something else? The ranger's signs were clear. No entry during rain events. Danger of flash flooding. But we were young, invincible. The abandoned ranger station was supposed to be just a mile in. We noticed the first anomaly when our compasses started spinning. Then the trees. Their bark had turned black and slick, like they'd been dipped in oil. The rain here fell in perfect straight lines. No wind, no variation, just relentless vertical needles of water. That's when we found the staircase. Concrete steps descending into the earth where no structure should exist. The water flowed up them, defying gravity. Mark went first. We heard his scream cut off with a sound like a heavy stone dropped in deep water. The radio we found on the steps still works sometimes. In the static, we can hear him whispering, "It's dry down here, so dry. Please come down." The cistern was my grandfather's solution for water collection. 50 years it stood behind our house without incident, until last month. The first knock was so faint I thought it was tree branches. Then it came again, 3 sharp raps from inside the metal tank. I climbed the ladder to peer through the intake screen. The water was black, still. Then something floated to the surface. A hand, not skeletal, not decayed, just waiting. The sheriff called me a liar until we opened the drain valve. The water that came out was warm and salty. They welded the tank shut yesterday. But this morning I found the bolt sheared clean through, and the water level, it's rising again. They found Emily half conscious in a ditch after the hurricane. Her skin was wrong, waxy, translucent. The doctor said it was shock, dehydration. Then the IV fluids made her scream. She disappeared from the hospital during a thunderstorm. Security footage showed her walking calmly into the downpour and dissolving like sugar in tea. We held a memorial. She showed up at church last Sunday, dry, smiling, perfect, until the baptismal font overflowed. The way her face sagged as the holy water touched her. Father O'Malley collapsed when he saw what was underneath. Emily's back in her room now. We keep the dehumidifier running constantly, and when it storms, we can hear her at the window begging, "Please let me go outside just for a minute. Would you have opened that cistern? Could you look your melted daughter in the eye?" Dr. Langdon insisted my rain delusions were PTSD. Then last session during a light drizzle, he froze mid-sentence. His eyes locked on the window behind me. "You hear that?" he whispered. The patter on glass had formed a rhythm. 3 quick taps. 2 slow. Repeat. When he stood to look outside, his chair fell backward, but the carpet was already soaked where it landed. His final note in my file reads, "Patient is correct. The rain is watching. Cancel all future appointments." They found him in his office 3 days later. The ceiling tiles were sagging with water weight, and his coffee cup, it kept refilling itself. The weather radio wasn't tuned to any station, yet the voice came through clear as day. "Me child," drawn out, garbled, like someone speaking through a mouthful of water. I unplugged it. The voice continued. "Now it comes through anything that holds water, the toilet tank, the kettle, the condensation on my bathroom mirror after a shower. Yesterday at the grocery store, I froze when the produce mister activated. Between the spray nozzles, it whispered, 'We see you skipping your medication.' The pharmacist confirmed it later. My antipsychotics, they've been placebos for months. Someone abandoned her on our porch swing during the storm. One of those expensive reborn dolls, hyper-realistic, with weighted limbs and hand-painted veins. Her pink dress was drenched. My wife wanted to call the police. I said we'd wait until morning. At 3 a.m., the baby monitor activated. "Mama!" Not our daughter's voice, something mimicking her. We found the doll in our toddler's crib, its porcelain face cracked from forehead to chin. Inside the fissure, teeth, human teeth. The security footage shows exactly when it arrived. Not during the storm, before the first drop fell. Would you have taken those pills? Could you have smashed that doll fast enough? Tell me, dear listener, are your windows locked? Are your gutters clear? Good, because it's starting to rain again. The storm came out of nowhere. 1 minute we were on a marked trail in bright sunshine. The next we were wading through ankle-deep mud as the trees shook under pounding rain. That's when we noticed the drops weren't falling randomly. They moved in patterns, swirling around us like we were the eye of some invisible hurricane. Our compass spun wildly. The GPS showed our location jumping erratically across the map, and the trail markers, they'd all been turned backwards. We found shelter in a cave as darkness fell. That's when the whispering started, not from outside, from the cave walls themselves, dripping words in languages no human throat could reproduce. We emerged at dawn to find our backpacks floating in a perfect circle of rainwater, with something black and glistening coiled in the center. It unspooled as we watched and began following our footprints back to town. The old Henderson place has been abandoned since the flood of '92. But when it rains, you can still hear them screaming. At first, we thought it was just the wind through broken windows. Then the pattern emerged. Light drizzle equals soft moaning. Steady rain equals sobbing. Downpour. Shrieks that make dogs howl for miles. Last Halloween, some kids broke in on a dare. They found the basement completely flooded, with fresh red petals floating on the surface. The police divers called off the search after one of them surfaced, screaming about things with too many teeth brushing past his legs. The screams stopped that night. Now when it rains, the house is perfectly silent, and all the faucets in town run slightly pink. The tapping started gently, just occasional drips, the kind that make you glance up at the ceiling. Then it became rhythmic, persistent, like something walking back and forth across my roof. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. The gutters were dry, not a single drop falling from the eaves, but the tapping continued overhead. I shone the light upward and saw them, dozens of handprints appearing in the rain-slick shingles, small ones, child-sized, moving toward the edge. I barely made it back inside before the first wet thump hit my porch. Now I keep buckets in every room for the leaks and for whatever keeps dripping down my chimney at night. The water wears many faces. The storm remembers every victim. Would you have looked up? Could you sleep under that roof again? They said the dam would hold, right up until the siren started wailing. We packed what we could and joined the line of cars snaking up the mountain road. That's when the rain changed direction. Instead of falling down, it began hitting the windshield sideways, then upwards, then in spirals that made the wipers useless. I'll never forget the sound of the first boulder hitting the road behind us, or how the rear-view mirror showed the floodwaters rising in perfect stair steps, as if something massive were climbing them. The radio cut out after the announcer screamed one last phrase, "God help us, they're in the water." Our car made it to high ground. 5 others didn't. Sometimes at night, when the wind is right, I can still hear their horns blaring under the waves. The research station was supposed to be waterproof, but the storm found ways in, first through the vents, then the electrical conduits, then other places. Dr. Cho noticed it first, how the rain seemed to avoid certain spots, like it was making paths. By day 3, the drops stopped touching Ramirez altogether. They'd curve around his body in midair. He disappeared that night. So did Chen and Petrov, each one taken only after the rain stopped falling on them. Now I'm alone in the generator room. The storm has been raging for 17 days. The strangest thing, no matter where I stand, not a single drop touches me anymore. And outside the broken window, something is learning to knock. Patient Zero, they call me, the first survivor, the only one who saw what came with the acid rains last October. They keep me in this sterile room, test my blood daily, monitor my dreams. The nurse has strict orders, no open water containers, no unsupervised showers, and absolutely no unlocked windows during storms. Last night she forgot. I woke to see her pressed against the glass. From the outside, her uniform was drenched, her mouth moved silently, and where her shadow should have been, the water kept forming shapes, letters, a message. Let us in. They've moved me to a new room today. No windows, but I can still hear the IV bag, dripping faster than it should. Could you have resisted looking at that shadow? Would you dare to sleep now, knowing what's in the IV? Final warning, tell me, loyal listener, are your lights flickering? Is your screen glitching? Don't worry, that's just the storm. And it's almost time. The engineers found the bones on the first day of excavation. Human, mostly. The sheriff called it an old burial ground. The construction foreman disagreed. The femurs were too long, the skulls too smooth, the teeth too sharp. Then the rains came. The site flooded overnight. When the crew returned, their equipment was gone. Not stolen, not washed away, buried. Excavators sunk deep into mud like something had pulled them under. Now the night watchmen report figures standing waist deep in the reservoir, motionless, staring at the construction trailers. The last security footage showed a shadow rising from the water, not reflected, not cast by anything visible, just there, stretching toward the camera. The dam is scheduled for completion next spring, but the workers whisper, whatever's down there doesn't want to be contained. It wants to be released. The first crack was normal. The second came too soon. The third wasn't thunder at all. It was something breaking. I pressed my face to the window just as the lightning flashed. The rain hung frozen in midair. Every drop, a billion suspended mirrors reflecting, something moving between them. Then time snapped back. The storm resumed, and my bedroom door swung open on its own. The hallway was flooded, not with water, with ink, and floating in it, a single perfect raindrop, still falling upward. The storm chased us for miles before we saw the church. Abandoned, boarded up, a rotting steeple leaning like a broken finger. We pried open the doors just as the hail started. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of wet hymnals and something older. That's when we noticed the baptismal font. It was full, too full. Water spilled over the sides in slow, syrupy waves, though nothing fed it. The sheriff's flashlight caught movement below the surface. Not fish, not rats. Faces, dozens of them, pressing against the water from underneath. As we backed away, the rain outside changed. It wasn't hitting the roof anymore. It was hitting from inside the walls. Would you have drunk from that font? Could you resist when your throat burned with thirst? They told us the drought would last forever. They were wrong. The first drops fell at midnight. By dawn, the streets were rivers. By noon, the rivers were oceans. I watched from my attic as the water swallowed the world below. That's when I saw her, standing on the floodwaters as if they were solid. A woman in a dress made of storm clouds. She had no face, just eyes. Eyes that multiplied in every raindrop. Eyes that watched from the puddles on my floor. The last thing I remember is the taste of salt and her voice whispering, "You were never above us, only ever between." They'll find this note curled inside a sealed bottle. If you're reading it, look up. The sky isn't empty anymore. Do you hear it? That sound outside your window. The hush of tires on wet pavement. The drip of a clogged gutter. The tap, tap, tap of something testing the glass. You told yourself it was just the storm, but the storm ended hours ago. So why hasn't the rain stopped? Why do your mirrors stay fogged? Why does your tea taste like seawater? Go ahead, check the weather report. I'll wait. See? Clear skies tonight. Then what's that sound on the roof? What's that shadow in the puddle by your bed? What's that cold spot on your pillow? Don't turn around. Just listen. The rain isn't falling anymore. It's climbing. And it's almost... You're still here. Good. They told me no one would listen this long. That modern attention spans couldn't endure real horror. But you wanted to feel that prickle on your neck, didn't you? That primal urge to check the locks one more time. I have a confession. These weren't just stories. They're transmissions. Every drop that hit your roof while you listened carried pieces of them. Every puddle you avoided today held echoes. That co-worker who smelled like mildew this morning, the dog that growled at nothing in the yard, all part of the pattern. They're coming for the ones who heard the warnings in the static, who felt their skin crawl at the wrongness of water moving against gravity. Look at your hands. See how pruned your fingertips are? Like you've been submerged for hours. Funny, you haven't touched water all day. The last storm missed you. This next one won't. When you hear the 3 knocks tonight, the ones that sound exactly like your dead grandmother's arthritis rhythm, do not answer. Too late. You already let us in. You weren't supposed to hear this part. I found something in the metadata, hidden in the waveforms, shapes that shouldn't be there, messages in the static. The first 60 stories, just preparation, conditioning your ears to hear the real signal underneath. They're in you now. The sounds, the rhythms, the way your pupils dilate when you see standing water. Haven't you noticed? The world looks different since you started listening. Shadows move wrong. Puddles reflect things that aren't there. I tried to warn you. Buried clues in the waveforms. The real horror wasn't in the stories. It was in the silences between them. Those long pauses where your brain filled in the blanks, where they got in. Too late now. The water always wins. Just do me one favor. When you feel the first drops on your skin tonight, the ones that don't evaporate, remember, you chose to keep listening. You're still listening. Of course you are. You think this is a story, a creepypasta, a bit of fun to make your skin prickle before bed. But you feel it, don't you? The way your reflection blinks a half second too slow. The way your tap water tastes like copper no matter how long you let it run. The way your devices pick up interference only when it rains. I need you to do something for me. Go to your bathroom, look at the mirror. Really look. Do you see them yet? The other faces? The ones in the steam you didn't make. They've been watching you listen, learning how you breathe, how you blink. The next time you hear thunder, close your eyes. If you're lucky, you'll only feel the cold. If you're not, you'll finally understand why the rain sounds like screaming. Do you remember the first time you drowned? It wasn't the bathtub when you were 6. Check your wrists. I let them in. From inside your closet. You keep asking if this is all, as if horror has an endpoint, as if the rain could ever stop. The stories were never the point. The ritual was. 60 nights of training your nervous system to flinch at thunder, to hesitate before touching fogged glass, to wake at 3:17 a.m. and not check the window. You thought you were listening to fiction, but the water remembers. The pipes in your walls are singing right now. Your gutters are overflowing with things that aren't rainwater. The pause between these words is exactly long enough for something to press its face against your back. This was never a story. It's an invitation. And you just answered it. The stories are told. The patterns are set. The listeners are prepared. But does water ever truly finish falling? Check your weather app. First drop of the next storm already falling. The storm has passed, for now, but the clouds are always gathering. The rain is always waiting. And the next time the skies darken, you'll hear the knocking again. Subscribe now, because the next downpour is coming, and you won't want to face it alone. Turn on notifications or risk missing the storm when it returns. Sleep lightly, listener.